Who is going to replace Charlie Kirk? The media is really trying to find an answer to that question, and the true answer isn't really what they're looking for. Also, Jen Hatmaker says you should wear the bikini because your body will always tell you the truth. We've got so much on today's episode of Relatable. It's brought to you by our friends at Good Ranchers. Go to goodranchers.com, use code Allie at checkout for a discount. That's goodranchers.com, code Allie. Hey guys, welcome to Relatable. Happy Wednesday. Hope everyone is having a wonderful week so far. If you have not listened to or watched the episode with my dad from Monday, you got to go back and do that. He truly gives, I think, the best advice, not just because of what he says, but because of how he says it. He has a way in my personal life of making me feel calmer about everything that's going on, talking me through things, making sure that I'm seeing clearly and logically, not just thinking with my emotions. And I'm just so grateful for that. And, I think that there is such a void in a lot of people's lives for fatherly advice. And obviously my dad can't really replace that in your day-to-day life. But I do hope that the episodes with him are a comfort to you, that they also bring clarity, but that you also feel like you have him to kind of give the wisdom that can only be given to someone in an older generation. Boomers get a bad rap, and maybe in some cases, rightfully so, but we all need to respect the wisdom and the perspective that is gained just by age and experience. I mean, at the age of 33, I am realizing how much experience gives you. When it comes to knowledge, when it comes to expertise, when it comes to ability, just living life and carrying out the responsibilities that come with life, both at home or outside of the home, it just gives you so many tools in your tool belt. So it just makes sense for us to rely on the people who are older than us to lend us that insight that we just don't quite have yet. And that is one thing I think that is going to be really lost by people purposely deferring marriage and parenting until later. That means that the grandparents are going to be a lot older for their grandkids. That means they're not going to be around as long as they used to be when people were getting married earlier. And that precious wisdom, that generational insight that is passed down like a baton is going to be lost for a lot of people. I think there's so many unseen implications to the choice that so many people have made to not have kids or to put off having kids until everything falls in line and you've fulfilled your career goals and all of that. I know for you out there who watch this podcast who is not married and don't have kids, it's probably not a choice that you have made. It's probably just where God has you right now, despite your own efforts and desires. But just in general, this trend of deferring those commitments, I think, has robbed a lot of young people of the insight of grandparents and great-grandparents. So I hope that the episodes with my dad allow you to access something that either you already have in your life or maybe you don't. He'll be back, I think, in just a couple weeks. So send in your questions, personal, economic, political questions, and he'll try to break them down for you. All right, we've got quite a few things to talk about today. First, I just wanted to thank the Turning Point chapter at Louisiana State University. I got to be there on Monday evening. This is Turning Points. This is the Turning Point campus tour. And of course, this was supposed to be Charlie Kirk's tour. And he was going to go to all of these campus stops and do what he did the best of anyone, and that is debate, discuss, field questions, both combative questions and sincere questions. And I have learned from people close to him that he had been preparing for this fall so much by digging into his word and making sure that he was sharp when it came to his evangelism and his apologetic skills. And I think you could really see that in the last few months of his public life. But I'm honored to be one of the many people who is replacing Charlie on this particular tour. And actually, just a few weeks before he died, he texted me a text between him, me, and Mikey McCoy saying, "Hey, I want you to join me on campus on November 3rd. And hadn't nailed down the university yet. It was either going to be Auburn, maybe the University of Alabama. And of course, I was honored and excited to get to do that with Charlie again. That's something that we did a few years ago at Auburn as well. And obviously that didn't come to fruition. But it is clear that the Lord is multiplying the work that Charlie did before he died, and that he is bringing many of the seeds that were planted to growth. And so this is God's work. He is totally sovereign. He's going to do what he wants to do in all of us, with Turning Point, in our lives, with Charlie's legacy. And on Monday night, I wanted my speech to be dedicated to 5 of the most controversial truths that Charlie spoke. 5 of the most controversial truths that Charlie spoke. And so I went through them. Number 1, my first one was that feminism has failed women. That is something Charlie talked about a lot. Number 2, that porn has weakened men. Number 3, merit trumps DEI. Number 4, America is a Christian nation. And then 5, what I think is probably the most controversial truth. In fact, it is the most controversial truth. And this is the truth that I believe Charlie died for. And that is, Jesus is the only way to heaven. So here's me explaining that one. SOT 7. The bad news is you're a sinner. You've done some bad things. We all have. Every single one of us has sinned. Every single one of us falls short of God's perfect standard, and that is his standard, perfection. He can't tolerate sin because he's a perfect, holy God, and he could have just left us to pay for our sin. And the payment for our sin is death, not just here, but in eternity in hell forever. That's what he could have left us for, but he didn't. He sent his own son, Jesus, to die on the cross, to live a sinless life, and then to sacrifice himself for our sin, and then to raise himself up by his own power 3 days later, defeating death. And by grace through faith, if you believe in that gospel, you won't die, but you'll have eternal life. You'll get to spend eternity in heaven with God. And that is true for every single person. So the crowd there giving a standing ovation for that statement that had nothing to do with me, but that crowd was enthusiastic about the gospel because that was the most important thing, of course, that Charlie talked about. And I had the opportunity, thankfully, to share the gospel there because even with such an enthusiastically Christian crowd, you just never know. A lot of people who might believe they know the gospel or think that they know the tenets of Christianity don't, and it's never a bad idea to reiterate that. Not only to other people, but also to ourselves. We should be preaching the gospel to ourselves for the increase of our faith on a daily basis. So of all the things that I said, and you can go watch the entire speech, it's on Turning Point's Rumble. I think it might even be on Blaze TV somewhere. I'm not exactly sure. But that is the most important, and that is always the most important. All right, we'll get into a few more things on this, but let me pause, tell you about our first sponsor for the day, Adele Natural Cosmetics. I am so grateful for Adele. I use their products on a daily basis. I don't travel without them. I don't go a day without using Adele, truly. Their essential cleanser is such a game changer for my skin. You've probably used all different kinds of products, maybe some of them super expensive, maybe some of them just drugstore brands, and all of them claim to clean your skin and prevent blemishes and to be anti-aging. But you might notice that they're not actually accomplishing those things. They're actually just stripping your skin of that protective barrier. And they're not accomplishing like the smooth texture and the glow that you're looking for. And I couldn't find that either until I started using Adele. They have an oil-based cleanser. It takes a little while to get used to because it literally feels like olive oil. That's actually one of the ingredients, but it really works. It gets all my makeup off, even my studio makeup, which is more than usual. And it makes my skin really moisturized and glowy and healthy. And I'm just so grateful that all of their products are completely holistic. authentic, totally natural, nothing synthetic, nothing fake, no endocrine disruptors. This is an unapologetically Christian, pro-life, family-owned company that makes all of their products by hand. Y'all, it is top notch. It is just a win all around to get all of your cosmetics and your skincare from Adele. So go to AdeleNaturalCosmetics.com. When you use code Allie, you'll get 25% off your first time purchase. That's AdeleNaturalCosmetics.com, code Allie. Okay, a couple more. Here's a very controversial truth that Charlie talked about, and that is that America is not a secular nation, but a Christian nation. Sorry.
All of the founders, at the very least, understood that it was the direction of providence, the creator of the universe, the giver of all rights, that laid the foundation for this country, is the source of liberty and the author of morality. And without recognizing that, America does not make sense.
And I know what some people are going to say. They're going to say, that's Christian nationalism, because you can't possibly love your country and be a Christian. You can't believe how the founders believed about the creator giving us rights. You can't believe those things because that somehow makes you a scary Christo-fascist. Well, here's what I have to say to that, Sot9.
Let me just tell you what this whole Christian nationalism attack is. It is a manipulation tactic in order to silence conservative Christians and conservative Christians alone. That's it. We are the only ones who are told if we bring our worldview to the table or to the voting booth, then we are promoting tyranny and fascism. But the secular progressive gets to bring the fullness of their worldview to the table. They get to vote in their strange beliefs that a baby isn't a full human until after they come out of the birth canal. That's not a scientific belief. That's a religious belief.
All right. If you listen to my show, if you watch my show, then you've heard me say that before. The belief that a man can become a woman isn't some neutral secular belief, and yet progressives believe that they can bring the fullness of their worldview to the voting booth, and their very arbitrary, weird moral opinions can inform our laws and our policies, but the Christian can't. Of course, every single law is a moral opinion. Every single law is based on one particular worldview. The question is only ever which one. And Christians have not only the right, but also the responsibility to bring our biblical worldview to the table when discussing policy. May the best idea win. But if we believe that God's way is better, if we know that God is love, 1 John 4:8, if we understand that he is the creator of the universe and therefore the authority over all of it, then how can we compartmentalize that? We can't. Jesus is the King of Kings, and the King of Kings cannot be compartmentalized. That's the truth of it. So it was such a wonderful crowd, super enthusiastic. I also got to do a Q&A with a bunch of the students, and I don't have time to play all of those for you today. I am going to be posting a lot of those interactions on Instagram over the next few days because some of them were just so sweet and sincere. A 13-year-old girl, her name was Darby. She said that she's about to get baptized, and she said she wants to be bold like Charlie Kirk, and so what can she do? And I'm like, you're already well on your way. I mean, you're 13 years old. You're coming up to the microphone in a spotlight, able to articulate this question so courageously and beautifully. But the truth is, and this is true for all of you out there, especially you teens that listen to this or watch this with your parents, you are not going to be the next Charlie Kirk. No one is going to be the next Charlie Kirk. For this young girl, like, you're going to be Darby. You're going to be the girl and the woman that God has called you to be. Like, you are going to live out every single one of your days that God has already mapped out for you. He has a purpose and an intention for your life. He has given you particular gifts, particular skills, a particular propensity that is unique to you that he is going to use for his glory to make the world around you look more like the kingdom of heaven, to advance his gospel in a way that you can. And so none of us need to be thinking about how we're going to be the next someone else, or how we're going to fill this person's shoes, or who is going to take that place. You just run the race that God has marked for you, and he is going to equip you to do that. He equips those that he calls and that he ordains, and he will do that for you. And that really relieves a lot of pressure. You don't have to try to be someone else. You don't have to try to have a particular platform. You don't even have to have a microphone. You don't have to be an influencer to have influence. Because God doesn't judge our obedience or our effectiveness by whether we have an audience of 5 people or an audience of 5 million people. It's how do we steward what he has given us in accordance with his word by the power of the Holy Spirit. So that's what you can do. I only had one debate last night. I was hoping for more debates, but with a guy who says that he's conservative, but he actually thinks that abortion is nuanced and not black and white. And so we had a good back and forth, and I will post that on Instagram at some point. But speaking of this topic of replacing Charlie Kirk, who is going to take his place? This has been a discussion and a conversation for a long time. There was this article that came out about me in the Wall Street Journal. And the headline of the article, this is full screen 39, "The Christian Podcaster Rallying a New Generation of Conservative Women." And, I was very thankful for this profile. And this journalist, her name is Elizabeth, she attended Share the Arrows, and she was very fascinated that, wow, okay, there are almost 7,000 women at this event from 6 different countries, from 48 different states, from all different socioeconomic backgrounds, some people who are new Christians, some people who have been Christians for a long time, some people who are conservative, but they're still trying to understand, the spiritual world and what it means to be a Christian. And I think she was genuinely impressed by that. And so she wanted to write an article about it. And I'm thankful. She's someone who comes from a liberal feminist perspective. So I didn't expect her to be on my same page with everything. And we'll get into kind of like how that manifested itself in this article. But there's just one thing that I want to say. So I read you the title of the article. And that was not, the title of the article was fine, and honoring the Christian podcaster rallying a new generation of conservative women. What was actually tweeted out was different than the headline. And I just want to read you what it said, and I want to give you my response. In case this is something that you have heard from other people, I want to make clear what my response is to this kind of framing. Podcaster Allie Beth Stuckey is emerging, the Wall Street Journal says, as an heir apparent to Charlie Kirk with a message about Christianity and motherhood that resonates with young conservative women. So let me just be clear about this, because I've noticed as I've talked to a variety of journalists, and maybe this is happening to other conservative commentators as well, that they really want to ask me this question. And they really want me, it seems, to answer a certain way. And my answer has been the same. And this is genuinely what I believe and how I feel every time, because Religion News Service also asked me this same question. And they did print my answer, which I appreciated. That journalist said something along the lines of, do you see yourself as like stepping into his place, evangelist, apologist, kind of trying to rally young women in the same way that he did for young men? And what I said to her is that Charlie was an anomaly. He was an anomaly. He was not only an incredible evangelist and an apologist, he was also an activist. He was an organizer. He was a campaigner. He led an entire organization, and he cared very much, as he should. This was his role, and he was so good at it, at getting as many people to vote for liberty as possible. And he did so many other things that I not only don't do, but also do not feel called or equipped to do. And I just want it to be clear that no matter what a headline is or what the Wall Street Journal wants to put out, that this is not at all how I don't think any other conservative commentator wants to be positioned. I am very grateful for the small part that I get to play carrying the torch of evangelism and persuasion. And I'm grateful for every opportunity I have to do that. I saw one person even say, I'm trying to rebrand or something since Charlie tragically was assassinated. I am exactly the same. Those of you who have been following me, I am exactly the same. I have not changed anything. There's my brand. It hasn't changed. It's exactly the same. Those of you who know me know that I have been talking about the things that I talk about for years. The messaging, the tone, the content, nothing has changed. And so I am doing exactly what I told that young 13-year-old young woman, girl, to do at LSU. I am running the race that God has marked out for me. And that's not going to look the same as anyone else's. That's the same as true for you. And Turning Point and Erica Kirk are doing an excellent job of carrying Charlie's legacy. And they should. They knew him. They worked with him every day. They knew him very well. And Erica alone understands Charlie's mind and what he envisioned. And they are the people that are carrying that out. I'm over here doing what God has called me to do. I will continue as long as he calls me to, as long as he equips me to encourage and empower the people who think like I do, and to educate and persuade the people who don't. That has been my goal with Relatable since the beginning. That will continue to be my goal. And while I love my Relata bros, like my heart is Christian women, young Christian women, and Christian women of all ages too. There are people who fall outside of that demographic, but that is my heart. Like I want to disciple those women. And that is what Relatable is about. Will continue to be what Relatable is about, who I'm thinking about when I'm speaking, when I'm writing. That's my mission and that's my message. So just ignore any media framing that is not actually trying to reflect like what I really said and like how I really feel. So you heard it from me. That kind of framing isn't coming from me. But I'll tell you what I think is exciting about this Wall Street Journal article, not for me, but for all of us and for this country in just a second. Let me pause, tell you about our next sponsor. It's 7 Weeks Coffee. 7 Weeks Coffee is America's pro-life and Christian coffee company. And that's not just a branding, marketing tactic. They actually put their money where their heart is. They donate 10% of every sale of 7 Weeks Coffee to pro-life pregnancy centers across the country. You guys know these pregnancy centers are the hands and feet of Jesus, serving these women, serving their children, making sure that these women know the life-affirming choices for their babies, giving them all of the education, the knowledge, the wisdom, the help, the resources that they need. They share the gospel with these women. I mean, pregnancy centers are incredible, and 7 Weeks Coffee is supporting them with every single sale. And because you have bought 7 Weeks Coffee, you've allowed your coffee to serve a higher purpose. They have donated over $1 million to these pregnancy centers. $1 million. That has saved image bearers of God. And you will maybe get to meet those babies and those moms on the other side of glory. And you contributed to that by buying 7 Weeks. So go ahead, subscribe, get your box of 7 Weeks Coffee to your front door every month. You save 15% when you do that. Plus, when you use my code Allie at checkout, you save an extra 10%. 7weekscoffee.com, code Allie. Okay, so the Christian podcasts are rallying a new generation of conservative women. Let me read you some of the article here. So she says, let's see, I don't even know. I kind of sent the screenshots to my team out of order. So we're just going to read them in the order that I have them and hope for the best. So she's quoting me here. And I'm going to I love to do this. Like I love to dissect articles. I love to dissect messaging and press releases and things like that. And I hope that it also gives you the tools to be able to dissect articles like this, to show you the subtle messaging and what they're trying to signal to their particular liberal audience. So here she quotes me, and this is in my opening speech. "This is a spiritual battle that is waged in our homes and in our neighborhoods, at school, at your job," she said. She is me. "Every step you take, every decision you make, and every word you say is a declaration of war against the enemy. Amen," rang out across the crowd. And something I saw throughout this article was the attempt to really highlight like the warfare language, the battle language. But of course, you guys know that I'm talking spiritually. I'm talking peacefully. And actually, I make that point that this isn't primarily about politics. This is not primarily about making you an activist. I said over and over again, this is a spiritual war that is waged in your homes with your children. If you're a stay-at-home mom, if you are part of the PTA, like if you are just a neighbor in a community, like this is a spiritual war that is being waged that all of us are called to fight on a daily basis by advancing the gospel in every area of our lives. And then this description of share the arrows makes me laugh. It really makes me laugh. Outraged by progressivism and alarmed by the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. We're just alarmed. It just was like, oh, wow, that was so surprising. Stuckey aims to mobilize a swath of conservative Christian women ranging from dyed-in-the-wool true believers to Prairie Corps Maha moms. Prairie Corps, okay. At her second annual Share the Arrows conference, women traveled from across the country and as far away as Australia to hear the tenets of her gospel. Christianity is under attack. Tolerance can be ungodly, and motherhood is queen. Have you ever heard me say that last phrase? Motherhood is queen? Motherhood is a high calling. Motherhood is beautiful. Motherhood is amazing. It is an incredible blessing. Have I ever said, has anyone ever said, even on our motherhood panel, that motherhood is queen? No, in fact, we talked over and over again. This was part of my speech. She didn't include this great alliteration that even if you are not going to be a biological mother or even an adoptive mother, maybe God never calls you to get married, that no matter what stage of life you are in, God's joy is available to you in Christ right now. That's not something that you can have later on. That's a trick of the devil to tell you that you can't be fulfilled or joyful until you get to some stage of life, which you don't even know if it's promised to you. You have the fullness of joy at Christ's right hand right now if you are a Christian woman, and you can channel your mothering instincts into children, into mentorship and discipleship right now. You don't need to direct that energy into pets, plants, profession, or politics primarily. You channel that mothering instinct into children in some way. She didn't include that. She included motherhood is queen, which I did not say. She also says Stuckey sees herself competing with progressive churches for the mushy middle. I've used that phrase for a long time. Christians who are scared of politics or who veer to the left. Her platform includes more than 2 million followers across her Instagram, blah. Okay. And then she talks more about statistics, and Glenn Beck is an early supporter of me, which is true. And then she says in my interview with her, I talked to this journalist for a while via Zoom. She said Stuckey said that whenever she speaks publicly, she imagines one fictional woman. This is true. The 35 or 40-year-old suburban mom of 3 or 4 kids that is busy, is trying to do her best to glorify God in her own life, to study the Bible more, and then to raise up her kids in a way that is godly and courageous. Women, in turn, she says, say they are drawn to Stuckey because she herself fits that description. For decades, much of the evangelical world's focus has been on young men, a group that has been returning to traditional churches and helped elect President Trump. Now, with evangelicals growing in political power but not in numbers, according to the Public Religion Research Institute, Stuckey is assembling a large and varied cohort of conservative Christian women and urging them to speak up on issues they believe are important. I think that's a really important paragraph, because I think that our demographic, Christian women, Christian conservative women, that we are really overlooked. There are a lot of Christian women, you guys know, that are social justice advocates that believe in all of the BLM propaganda. Like our little sliver over here, where we are truly conservative, trying our best to be biblical on all of these things, avoiding toxic empathy, not believing secular narratives on things like immigration. Like we definitely are in the minority, but we are here. And we are a significant voting bloc. And I do think a lot of people overlook us. And I think that it is interesting that the media now, I mean, we've got Dallas Morning News, we've got the Wall Street Journal, we've got the New York Times, the Washington Post also published something, NPR, all about Share the Arrows. And it's not about me, it's about us. And that even the mainstream and the secular world is noticing, hey, something's going on over there. Like something's happening there, and I don't really know what it is, and I don't really know how to describe it. But clearly, this demographic, these women that we thought all kind of would eventually go over to the left, they're still hanging on. And these aren't. What's interesting also about our cohort, yes, I would say the vast majority of us voted for Donald Trump. You guys know I've voted for Donald Trump 3 times now and encourage my audience to do the same. But we're not your traditional like MAGA Republicans. We don't necessarily look like that. And I think that the media wants us to look like that. And I think they want us to believe that we unconditionally support the Republican Party and every politician, that we idolize Donald Trump. And you know what this journalist pointed out. She said this is full screen 46. Stuckey didn't address Trump or other politicians at the event. It wasn't meant to be a political rally, she told the Journal. I care about the issues underneath the issues. And that is exactly right. And I think that that is probably a little scary for the secular world, that we are not just looking at superficial politics, that our worldview and our politics are grounded in much deeper convictions, in much deeper beliefs. The journalists that were there didn't hear any crazy conspiracy theories. They didn't hear, a political rallying cry. You know how much I believe that politics are important, but something much deeper and more theological than that, more grounded than that. And I'm very thankful that at least the media is trying to understand us and who we are. We just have to continue to be sweet, to be bold, to be persuasive, to be compassionate without compromising 1 inch. So I thought this was funny. She said in full screen 47, among the Christian stuff, she puts in quotes, that Stuckey believes the Bible deems true. I just believe it. There are only 2 genders determined at conception. Marriage is between a man and a woman. She also believes abortion is murder. And in vitro fertilization, surrogate parenthood, and hormonal birth control are wrong, including in marriage. This is true. And I have done a ton of episodes on this. This kind of shocked, I think, some of you on Instagram when I posted this, maybe you're new followers, but you can type in on YouTube, Allie Beth Stuckey IVF or Allie Beth Stuckey surrogacy, Allie Beth Stuckey hormonal birth control, and all of my episodes for the past 5 years on those subjects will come up. I thought this was cool too. She talked to some of you. Full screen 48. Elizabeth Olson, a 43-year-old nurse from Apple Valley, Minnesota, who brought her mom to the conference, left feeling encouraged. There's something about being around other Christians, knowing you won't be mocked or looked down on as stupid for believing in the Bible, she says. Like many other women at the conference, Olson finds the national discord of the past several years distressing. Increasingly, people feel like they can't say what they really think. She credits Stuckey and the other speakers with challenging her to speak up and think more critically. We're tired of living under the weight of being told we're hateful when we know we aren't. So true. We want to take the thoughts and feelings of those we disagree with into consideration, but still tell the truth. So that's why people came to share the arrows. They came to have no fear of man, to remember that they're not alone. Someone who lives in Minnesota, someone who lives in California, someone who lives in Oregon, it's really easy for them to feel alone. Full screen 44. Catherine Metrick, a 37-year-old stay-at-home mom from California, drove 20 hours with 10 women from her church, including her mother-in-law and 1-year-old daughter. She called it absolutely wonderful to be in a room with other women who share the same values I do and to worship them. I mean, it really is just amazing. The people who came from all across the country made the sacrifices necessary to do that, and people who came from Australia. And again, it just goes to show that something is going on spiritually, not just in this country, but in the world. And people complain so much about women being liberal, which yes, I've complained about that too. It is something worth complaining about and, being disturbed by. But I am trying my best in my small way to persuade women and to change women's mind using the Bible and using the power of persuasion from a very genuine place. I believe these things because I believe I see them in God's word, and I want you to believe them too. So take my arguments and see if when you weigh them against truth, weigh them against logic, do they hold up? That's what I'm trying to do. And a lot of people want me to address criticism that I got after Share the Arrows from people saying a woman shouldn't be doing this. A woman shouldn't be talking in this way. A woman shouldn't be on stage. A woman shouldn't have this role. And I don't want to give air to all of those people because I know they really, really want to be platformed and they want the attention and they want your eyeballs and your ears. And I'm not going to give them that. But look, I am a woman who has been called to try to persuade and equip other women. I have no desire to go outside of that. I don't have any desire to be like a leader of men. That is not my goal. But you can't complain that women are liberal. And then also complain about the person that is trying really hard to change that. So that's all I'm going to say about that. She also mentions that there were a lot of babies there and that I said from the stage how much I love that. I did. I loved hearing all of the babies from stage. And then let's see, the last thing that I had shared that she posted, and this is true, that sharing the arrows, I said, means that we are staring down the darkness together. And that is what it means to share the arrows. That's what we're doing. And thank you to all of you. You've seen a lot of the heat that I've taken over the past few weeks, and I'm not trying to be a victim or draw attention to that. It's part of it. It's part of this, you know. I've heard before this quote, I think it's actually from Todd Wagner, that leadership is a commitment to being misunderstood. But not only misunderstood, but also misrepresented. And that's just part of it. But I do really, really appreciate all of your prayers and the arrows that you have shared with me. It means a lot. I've got the best audience in the world. And you know what? The Wall Street Journal is noticing that. So praise God. Praise God. All right. We've got a couple more things to get into. Let me pause, tell you about our next sponsor for the day. It's Samaritan's Purse. Wow. What an important sponsor. So incredibly thankful for Operation Christmas Child. I've been doing those Operation Christmas Child boxes since I was little. And maybe you have too, or maybe you don't know what I'm talking about. But what you do is you have these shoe boxes, or you can get a plastic box that is shaped like a shoe box, and you fill it with different non-perishable, easily shipped gifts for kids, of boy or a girl, different age groups. And all you do is you go to samaritanspurse.org/OCC. That stands for Operation Christmas Child. And you can print off the label and you can decide what kind of gifts you want to put in the box. And then there are different drop-offs. There's a drop-off location near you. Different churches become these drop-off locations. And then you drop off your shoebox. This is a great thing to do with your kids, to remind them what Christmas is really about. It's about Jesus incarnate, the Word made flesh, and it's about His gospel that then motivates us to help people who don't have the same things that we do, who have less. I have a friend who is an immigrant from Africa, and she said, you know, she didn't really think much about Operation Christmas Child, but then she saw firsthand kids receive these boxes throughout the year and the joy and the love that they felt, sometimes for the first time in their lives, and what an impact it had on them for years to come, and that changed her mind. So you can be a part of that story. They are hoping to reach over 12 million children in over 170 countries and territories. So join us in this effort, samaritanspurse.org/OCC. Learn how to pack a shoebox or build one online. Again, that's samaritanspurse.org/OCC. All right, I want to read you this quote by Jen Hatmaker. Y'all, Jen Hatmaker. It's really something. This is in Oprah magazine. Okay, she just had a new book come out. She's had a lot of good PR when it comes to this book, and it is about the truly, and I don't say this with any snark whatsoever, the truly tragic disintegration of her marriage. But what is even more tragic is the disintegration of her Christianity, and how she has adopted secularism, how she has now decided to worship the God of self rather than the God of Scripture. And that is not freedom. That's not fulfillment. That's not satisfaction. That will lead to a dead end. But she has exchanged Christianity for these new age beliefs that, of course, Oprah herself has represented for a very long time. So this doesn't surprise me. So here's what Jen Hatmaker has to say. Women contain a deep wisdom that not only leads us well, but could heal the earth. When my internalized misogyny asserts its conditioned response to defend abusive systems, my body overrides it immediately. She knows. She tells me the truth. She always tells me the truth. Can I just pause right there for a second? You know, sometimes my body tells me that I'm hungry after I've eaten like 1,000 calories. You know what? Sometimes my body is like, you need crumble cookies right now. Sometimes my body, because I'm tired and because I'm, like stressed about something, sometimes my body tells me you should be irritable. You should be rude. You should be snarky with this person. Sometimes my body, my hormones, my hunger, my lack of sleep, the million things that go on in the world that affect our bodies tell us things that are not true. They tell us things that are not true. They give us cues that don't actually point us in the right direction. Our body is not a source of truth. Our bodies are made in the image of God, but they are not like God. Now, gosh, what did the serpent say to Eve in the Garden of Eden? You can be like God. You can be like God. You will not surely die if you take a bite of the fruit of this tree, which the God who created you and loves you strictly forbade you from eating. You will not surely die. You'll just have the wisdom and the power that God had. Jen Hatmaker has taken a bite of the apple. And she believes that her body is like God, has this kind of Gnostic transcendent knowledge, this like ancient goddess-like wisdom that can tell her what is true. What a heavy burden to bear, that we have to be the interpreters of the truth that our body is trying to tell us. That's not to say that our emotions or that our hunger or that the cues that our body tells us don't tell us anything. Of course they can. This is data. This is information that our minds have to process, but they all have to go through the prism of absolute truth, which of course is Jesus Christ, which is the Word of God. So Jen Hatmaker goes on to say, our life's work is to reject those capitalistic patriarchal narrative systems that have conspired to keep us at war with our bodies. What? How has capitalism kept me at war with my body? How has the patriarchy kept me at war with my body? Where is the patriarchy, by the way? Is the patriarchy in the room with us right now? How is the patriarchy making you at war with your body? Maybe we just need to flesh that out in a conversation. Capitalism makes my body very happy because it means I don't have to stand in a bread line. I'm happy about how capitalism allows me to go to a gym that is competing for my business and allows me to choose between lots of different food options. I'm very happy that capitalism actually doesn't make me at war with my body. And by the way, it's not capitalism or patriarchy that is actually making women at war with their bodies. It's feminism. Because feminism has degraded this special and unique capacity to give and to bear and sustain life. So she's got it exactly wrong. She also goes on to say, if we hate how we look, these systems own us. If we hate what we want, they dominate us. If we hate what we crave, they control us. What is even, I don't even know. I don't know. Sometimes things sound really profound, but this is what I want you to do when you're reading something or listening to something like this. Same thing with Glennon Doyle. All of these people, there's actually quite a few people that do this. They say something that sounds really eloquent or sounds really catchy because the pacing is right and the cadence is right. But then you start thinking about it and you're like, I don't think that actually meant anything. And that's actually the hallmark of really good propaganda, of effective propaganda. Because trans women are women. Or love is love, or social justice is justice, or abortion is healthcare. Suddenly, it arrests your thinking. So you're no longer critically analyzing anymore, but you're just repeating these circular mantras. But if you don't define those terms, then of course, those circular mantras don't mean anything. So I don't understand. If we hate how we look, these systems own us. But I don't know. They get to master us with impunity. When we despise ourselves, we do their dirty work, and in so doing, become their most powerful co-conspirators. Okay, I want one of you out there. I have a project for you. Those of you who are watching this on YouTube, I want you to interpret this for me. I want you to break this down. I'm sure that I am my mind is so dominated by capitalism and the patriarchy that I cannot understand what Jen Hatmaker's truth-filled body is trying to convey to all of us. Our bodies are beautiful, she says, truly, all of them, gorgeous inside and out. Okay, I do believe, because all people are made in the image of God, there is beauty in every single person. They're deserving of good what? I didn't read this full thing before. Okay, I don't even know if I can. Okay. She says they're deserving of the good lotions, the good sex, the good words, the good interventions. They should be heeded like the safest, smartest, truest, most knowing source of wisdom possible because they are. But they're not. Our bodies lie to us all the time. Our bodies are fallible. Our bodies decay. Our bodies break down. Our bodies fail us in a lot of ways. It's true, she says, your body is not the enemy. That is true. And I want to tell that to people who have an abortion, that your body, your baby's body, which is in your body, is not the enemy. Your biology, the reality that you were made male or female at conception, that's not the enemy. People who identify as the opposite sex, which Jen Hatmaker 100% supports, even in children, she's been outspoken about this, protect trans kids. People who are mutilating their bodies through hormone blockers, puberty blockers, and cross-sex hormones and double mastectomies, that is literally bloody war with your body. So she doesn't even agree with what she's saying. I do, that your body is not the enemy. Your body is the most knowing source of wisdom possible? No, that's the Lord. She is your best friend, your body, says Jen Hatmaker. Trust her, love her. Wear the bikini, beloveds. That got a laugh in the room. You don't need to trust your body. You should love your body. You should steward your body well. You should care for your body. You absolutely should. Because your body is a dwelling place for the Holy Spirit, because your body was knitted together with intention and purpose and love in the womb. Your body matters. The body matters so much in Christianity. I mean, Jesus became flesh and dwelt among us. He died bodily. He rose again bodily. He ascended bodily. He is coming back bodily, and there is going to be a bodily resurrection of the believers. The body matters very much in Christianity. It actually doesn't matter in Jen Hatmaker's New Age worldview. The belief that you can deny your biology to become something different, that you can deny your innate capability to bear a child through abortion. Even the denial of reproductive reality when two men or two women try to marry each other. You know, Elisa Childers told me something, and I used it in my Jubilee debate. And this comes from her to me, but she said, you know, everyone has like a full digestive system, a full circulatory system. We have full systems in our body. The only system in our body that we have that is incomplete, that we only have half of, is our reproductive system. Everyone only has half of the reproductive system. Your digestive system can do what it needs to do by itself. Same with your circulatory system. Your reproductive system cannot reproduce without the other half of the reproductive system. Don't you think that science, like if our body is really a source of wisdom and insight, don't you think our reproductive system tells us a little bit of something about how we should live? And of course, that's God in his creation telling us that. And by the way, none of this means that you should be wearing the bikini. Like that's a whole other conversation. We have talked about this before, about modesty. It doesn't necessarily mean legalistic rules about what you are wearing, but there are good rules. And modesty is good. It starts in the heart. It's about the dignity and the honor and the humility of the heart, but that should manifest itself in what we wear externally. Bikini probably doesn't fit into that. And I don't see how anything that she says has to do with that. So don't listen to Jen Hatmaker, okay? Don't listen to Glennon Doyle. They do not have a gospel of liberation for you. This is a burdensome gospel that places you in the place of God, and you make a horrible God. I make a horrible God. We make very cruel, stupid gods. Let the God of the universe be God. Submit to him. Go to him for knowledge and wisdom and who you are and why you matter. All right, just a couple more things. Let me tell you about our next sponsor, and that is Shopify. If you are a business owner, especially if you are selling things online, then you need Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., from household names to brands just getting started. We use Shopify to sell all of our merchandise. Very thankful for how easy they make it. If you're a business owner, you know that you don't want to spend time setting up the website, writing product descriptions, all of that stuff. They take care of all of that for you. They make it as easy as possible so you can go back to creating and making money. That's really what it's about. It allows you to make money on your hard work more efficiently and more easily. You can get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store to match your brand's style. Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. Take your big business idea with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Allie. That's shopify.com/Allie. So I asked my audience before my dad's episode, what is your biggest national concern, political concern? By far. So I've got, 845,000 followers on Instagram, most of them Christian conservative women. And so I got thousands of responses. What is your biggest national political concern? By far, and this actually surprised me, the number one answer was Islam. The growing dominance of Islam. The feeling that, these churches are being replaced by mosques. And, wow, these leaders of places like New York City and Dearborn and Minnesota are Muslim. This is starting to look like Europe. This is starting to look a lot like the UK. And of course, you listened to or watched my episode with Raymond Ibrahim, and we talked about what Islam actually is. What does it actually believe? What does the Quran actually say? Why are there some verses that seem peaceful and some verses that seem very violent? What does Islam as a religion actually teach, and why does it manifest itself the way that it does? And why do Muslims move to non-Sharia countries if they want Sharia enacted everywhere? We answered all of those questions. He answered all of those questions. And a lot of you are very concerned by that. And so I posted this on X that by far this was my biggest answer. And a lot of people, of course, agreed. And then I got this really strange reaction from some people on the right, or who say that they're on the right anyway, saying, this is not true. I don't believe you. This is a post that's getting paid for. This is a sudden shift. This is like a propaganda movement from like the pro-Israel crowd on the right, from dispensationalists, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you know what? Pray to the Lord to heal your brainworms. Are you kidding me? Like, we have been talking about the dangers of Islam at least since 9/11. Conservatives have been talking about the dangers of Islam for a very long time. Okay? This has been at the forefront of conversation, at least on and off, for years. This has nothing to do with Israel. I'm not a dispensationalist, by the way. So you can't get me on that. I don't have that kind of theology that you guys think that all evangelicals have about Israel. I don't have that theology, so you're just not going to get me there. It is concerning to me that there is a segment of the right that is soft on Islam. That you think that Islam and Christianity have things in common, that you think that there is some alliance happening between Christians and Muslims because we both don't agree with homosexuality. That is not happening. If you believe that, you are delusional. You are delusional. I'm not saying every one individual Muslim wants to kill all Christians. I'm not saying that. But Islam as a religion is responsible for most of the persecution against Christians. I mean, our brothers and sisters in Nigeria who are being slaughtered right now are being slaughtered by the Islamic regime there in Nigeria. And the government is doing nothing about it. This is happening throughout the world. So I'm very confused by this. Does it just come from this animosity that a lot of these people on the right now have toward Israel? Just understand that you are the ones who have shifted on that. It's not us who's shifted. Like, you don't have to pay for someone to have eyes. All you have to have is eyes and ears to see that Islam leads to domination, to conquest, to degradation, and to tyranny. Every single place that it goes, and to more glorification of violence, that it is anti-Christian and it hates Christianity. And by the way, like, Muslims typically vote Democrat. They typically are on the progressive side, and a lot of people are confused by that. Why would they do that when they align with conservative values on so many things? Oh, did you not realize the alliance that is shaping up? You didn't realize that the one commonality between LGBTQ activists and Islam is a hatred of Christianity? That is the common thread that's going on there. Yeah, you're right. Most Muslims are not progressive. They certainly don't believe in homosexuality. They'll push that right off the roof. It's a hatred of Christianity. That is what is going on there. I am concerned with a lot of changes that I'm seeing on the right. The truth is that Charlie Kirk kept a lot of crazy at bay. And he expanded the parameters of what could be talked about a lot. And he expanded the parameters of debate. And he certainly was a big tent guy. But there were certain things that were just like off limits. And he was kind of a gatekeeper, honestly, of mainstream Christianity. And now we don't have that. And so now we're platforming the worst people in the world who are by no definition conservative. And I don't know. I don't know what the future of conservatism looks like. I don't know what the future of the right looks like. I don't know what the future of the Republican Party looks like. I just don't know. And it can make me really sad, honestly, and really anxious, because I think things were a lot more clear when like Charlie was at the helm. And now it's very confusing and troubling. Some of the biggest voices are not biblically sound, are not morally clear. They're moral relativists. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know where this leads us. But to go back to the beginning of this episode, the only thing that I focus on is doing what I was called to do and focusing on my audience and my calling and my platform, and just having to pray and trust God with the rest of it. And that's all any of us can do, is the next right thing in faith with excellence and for the glory of God. All right, I've got one more sponsor before I close this out, and that is Preborn. Preborn Network Clinics is equipping pregnancy centers across the country, and they are making sure they have the ultrasound equipment that they need. They are making sure that they have all the resources possible to be able to serve those moms in need and to help them make that life-affirming choice so that they can be a mom, so that they can pursue adoption, but that they hear the truth, unlike what Planned Parenthood and other activist organizations are telling them. That's what Preborn is all about. You can partner with them. You can help fund the cost of a life-saving ultrasound by giving just $28. That's preborn.com/Allie. Donate whatever you can. You can donate $28. You can donate $28,000. You can donate $2.80. Whatever your best gift is, contribute that to saving the lives of these babies. Go to preborn.com/Allie. That's preborn.com/Allie. Okay, y'all, on Friday, we will be back and we will be talking to the author of the book, Lies My Therapist Told Me. This is a Christian perspective about the lies on parenting. And y'all, I have had one line from that interview ringing in my head every single day. And this is just, think about this before the interview, and then you'll hear him explain what this means. Your body cannot make you sin. Your body cannot make you sin. You are not bound by your hormones or how your body makes you feel. Your body cannot make you sin. He is unpacking so many lies with biblical truth on Friday. We have so much to look forward to in that conversation. I think it's going to be really educational and refreshing for you. All right, that's all we've got time for today. We will see you back here on Friday.